take place, there's a word that came to my mind. And it's a word that I really don't enjoy this word. The word is empty. Definition, the Webster's Dictionary defines it as containing nothing. I don't like it when things are empty. Matter of fact, I went and tried to find a sound effect for this, but one of the things I don't like is when you're drinking your drink and you're drinking it through a straw and that slurping noise. All right? All the sound effects that I found about that did not sound appropriate to play here today. But I hate that sound because it means my Dr. Pepper is empty. Have you ever went and made yourself a nice big bowl of cereal? And you go to the refrigerator, you open it up, and somebody has put back an empty carton? Yeah. Or just enough to wet your cereal. Man, that frustrates me. I hate it when it's empty. Ever fill up your vehicle, park it at night with a full tank of gas only to come out and somebody has used it and brought it back to you on empty? Do you enjoy that? No. Ever got to the store and you get up to the checkout line, you put all your items on the belt there and you reach for your billfold, you pull it out, and you know you had cash the night before, but you open it and somebody in your household has decided you didn't need that money. And you have nothing. And it's empty. Drives me nuts. I hate when things are empty. 23 years ago, I convinced a young lady from Stillwater, Oklahoma to marry me. And we went because I knew that my taste was probably not her taste. And so I decided that we needed to pick out the rings together. And so we went and we picked them out and I bought them, but I hadn't proposed to her yet. And so the tricky thing was I was going to have to figure out a way to propose to her without her even knowing it. And so I came up with this idea. I thought, I'm going to have to go Lance Peterson style and completely fool her. Because she knew I had the rings. She knew the question was coming sometime. And so she came up from Stillwater to Kansas one weekend. We stayed a weekend at my parents' house. They live out in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And behind their property, in the middle of this section, was this abandoned house. And my dad would tell the story as a kid that this old man lived in this house. And he had several buildings around there. There was a pond. But no one really knew who this guy was. But word was that he had all kinds of antiques. And so when he passed away, everybody from the countryside came to the cell to see what he had. And so I thought, you know what, I could use that to my advantage. And so I went, and I had a great aunt who traveled all over the world, and she would write these postcards back to the family. And my parents had this stack of postcards from her. Some of them were blank. And so I had, and you know, I spent a lot of time in youth ministry, so I put on my youth ministry cap here, and I had my dad draw a map on the back of one of those postcards that was blank. A treasure map. All right? And so we took all those postcards, and I went out to this building, to the house. They had no windows, they had no doors. The roof was about to fall in. And I hid this stack of postcards in a wall in that house. And on that map, there was all kinds of things like a boxcar, a stone fence, a crooked tree. And then I took her ring, and I found this metal chest that looked like it was old and been out inside forever. And I got another box, and I filled this box up with buttons. And I buried her ring in the bottom of that box. And then I took that metal can and I hid it in a pile of rocks. So the day comes, it's Saturday, I hide her ring. And to get her to go, I had convinced her that we needed to go fishing. There was a pond there that had some good fishing. And I think she knew that, hey, this might be it. All right? So we fished for like 3 hours. About after the first hour, she was just sitting on the bank, just staring into nowhere. Yeah, she was so bored. And I was like, I know, I've got to keep her off the trail. And so we fished for about 3 hours. And finally I said, hey, and I told her the story about the old man in the house. And I said, let's go look around, maybe we'll find something. And so we go to this house and we're looking around and she just is totally disengaged. She's annoyed, it's hot, she's sweaty, she's dirty, we hardly caught any fish. What is the point of this, Lance? And so finally I pulled this board off the wall and there's a stack of postcards. And she's like, oh. And what I didn't realize is that she would sit down, and it was about this many postcards, and she started to read every single one of them. We're going to be here all day. And so I grabbed half of them, and I looked through them, and I found the map, and I said, hey, this looks like a map. It looks like it's in this place. She's like, I don't care. She's still reading the postcards. So I go outside, and I'm like, yeah, there's a pond, there's a house, there's a couple of sheds. It's a map of this place. Let's look at it. Finally, she takes her postcards and is like, okay, let's go. Let's go check this out. And so the first thing on the postcard was a boxcar. And so we walked over the hill, through the woods, and there was the boxcar. But she still was not engaged. Right? She was like, I don't care. So then we went to the next item, and there was a stone fence. We went over a hill and came up, and there was a stone fence. And all of a sudden now she's changed. She's like, hey! And she took the postcard from me. All right? She's like, okay, let's go find the next thing. And we find a crooked tree, and now she's almost, she's overcome with joy. And we go up to this cliff, and we're looking for this rock pile, and there it is. And she runs to this rock pile, and she starts to pull out, and she's like, what are we going to find? I'm like, I know what you're going to find. And she's pulling out these rocks. She gets to the metal can, opens it up, opens the box, and it's full of buttons, and she just starts laughing. Who would hide a box of buttons? That's what she said. Who would hide that? I'm like, well, there's something in there. But I didn't say that because I'm standing behind her, because as soon as she finds it, I'm going to take a knee, right? So I'm trying not to give it away. And I want to say, put your hand in it, all right? Break it. Finally, she was like, she takes her hand and she moves some of the buttons, and there is a ring box. And if you talk to her, she'll admit this. She opens it up, and her first thought was, it's a ring just like mine. She opens it up, and there's the ring, and she turns around, and I'm on one knee at this time. She knows what's going to happen now. But she has a choice. Because what she thought was empty, or just a box of buttons, is drastically going to change her life. This morning, we have the opportunity to glance into an empty tomb that literally has the power to change your life and my life. And just like Carrie that day, I'm so thankful that she didn't say no. She took her ring, she said yes, and her life has never been the same. Today, you have an opportunity to look into the tomb that is empty. Everybody thought it was full. Everybody expected it to be full, and it wasn't. And the power of the empty tomb has the power to change your life. If you have your Bibles, look at Luke chapter 24. And what we're going to do is we're going to read this story. If you've got a Bible or if you've got a tablet, you can pull it up on your phone. If you don't have one of those things, you can look at it on the screen, I think. And we're going to read, starting with verse 1. But on the first day of the week, they went to the tomb, taking it had prepared, and they rolled, and they... I have a little problem there. There's some of the words that are missing there. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb. I didn't think that sounded right. Taking the spices that they had prepared, and they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they went in, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. While they were perplexed about this, behold, two men stood by them in dazzling apparel. And as they were frightened and bowed their faces to the ground, the men said to them, why do you seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, to be crucified, and on the third day rise. And then they remembered his words. And they returned from the tomb, and they told all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. And now it was Mary of Magdalene and Jonah, and Mary, the mother of James, and other women with them, who told these things to the apostles. But these words seemed to them like an idle tale, like it was nonsense. and they did not believe them. But Peter rose and ran to the tomb. Stooping down and looking in, he saw the linen cloths by themselves, and he went home marveled at what had happened. The tomb was empty. The women didn't expect the tomb to be empty, but it was. The apostles thought it was nonsense. And Peter, when he saw the empty tomb, he scratched his head and wondered what had happened. None of them expected the tomb to be empty, but it was. Robert Flatt says this: the resurrection gives my life meaning and direction and the opportunity to start over no matter what the circumstances are. The empty tomb has the power to change your life. 2 weeks ago, we started a series, a short series, Jesus Is. And we have this sign over there, and there's so many words that describe who Jesus is to us. And what a friend he is. He's a friend that can define who we are. He's a friend that doesn't abandon us. By grace, that we are dead, that we are lifeless in sin. But because of Jesus' grace, we have hope today. And Jesus is my hope. So what does that mean to you today? What does the empty tomb mean to you? Because the empty tomb has the power to change lives. And real quickly this morning, what I want to do is share with you 2 things that the power of the empty tomb can do for you and I. Because here's the deal. If you choose to sit there and not answer the question, yes or no, if you choose to sit there and be on the sideline, then it's not going to change your life. But if you look into it and you go into the tomb and you say yes, like Carrie said yes to me, then it has the power to change your life. But you've got to commit to that. You can't just sit on the sideline. So the empty tomb, here's what it does. It fills us with victory. The fact is, because of the empty tomb, death can't get any worse. And it can't get victory over us. Death has no hold on us. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Listen to what Paul says here, starting with verse 55. "O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" It's almost like Paul is taunting death, right? And you can't taunt somebody if you don't have game, right? If you don't have game, you can't taunt. I played a lot of basketball in my days. Not today, but in the past. And even though I played a lot, I wasn't very good, so I didn't taunt people. Right? I didn't trash talk people. Right? That's what Paul seems like he's doing here with death. He's trash talking death. And so, even though I played a lot of ball, I didn't trash it. And I remember one time we were traveling and we were down in Texas, just south of Dallas, and we were playing a college, an Assemblies of God college. And these boys knew how to trash talk and speak in tongues, all right? And they were beating us. And they were beating us like we had just stolen something. And it was embarrassing. And I had a guy that was guarding me, and all day long, he was talking trash. He was just mouthing off. And finally, I had enough of it, and I started to play this game with him. And finally, it came down to where he was like, okay, if you think you're that good, and he didn't know my name, he said number 25, then score on me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to. All right, next time I get the ball, I'm going to score on you. And so I got the ball, and he D'd up on me, and I made a move, and I fell back, all the way shot, and nothing but air. Missed everything. And he looked at me, and he was just like, that's what you have? And that was the end of my trash talking days. Because I have no game. Paul's got game. He knows exactly what is going on here in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. He knows who has the victory. And he says, "O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" In verse 56, the sting of death is sin. Romans 6:23, the wages of sin is death. Romans 3:23, for all, listen to this. I know there's some of you in here that might look at your life and go, I got it pretty good. And I'm pretty close to perfect. But Romans 3:23 tells us, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Romans 6:23 says, for the wages of sin is death. Listen to what else the verse says. The sting of death is sin, and the power of sin dwells in our flesh, and is corrupted by sin. The law arouses the sinful passions in our life. Romans 7:5 says this, for while we were living in the flesh, our sinful passions aroused by the law were at work in the members to bear fruit for death. What does that actually mean? I once read about this poisonous plant at this botanical garden. And it had been there for many, many years. And no one knew about it. The administration knew nothing about it. And it was such a dangerous plant. By just reaching out and touching that plant could cause you to die. And after a couple of years, and they had no problem, somebody realized how dangerous this plant was, and they decided for the safety of all those that came to visit, that they would put a sign on it. Do you know what happened? 2 days later, somebody died. Why? Because curiosity got the best of them. And they couldn't avoid touching this dangerous plant. And that's exactly what Paul is talking about. The Bible says that it is so with the Old Testament law. It arouses the sinful passion, which is working the members of every man's body to bear the fruit of death. But I love what Paul says. In verse 57 of 1 Corinthians, he says, but thanks be to God who gives us victory through Jesus Christ our Lord. Victory in Jesus. Victory over sin. Victory over death. Jesus was not defeated that day at Calvary. Satan had his moment of glory, but it was defeated the moment that Jesus rose from that tomb. Death was not the end, but it was only the beginning of what would be the most glorious victory of all. And Jesus said in John chapter 11, verse 25, I am the resurrection, I am the life, and whoever believes in me shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Not only do we have the victory for today, guys, when we look at that empty tomb and we say yes, and we step into that glory with Jesus, we not only have the victory for today, we don't only have the victory for tomorrow, but we have victory for eternity. Think about that. That's what matters. Here's the second thing that the empty tomb fills us with when we say yes. It fills us with hope. Fills us with hope. Even though tragedy may cause us to doubt, tragedy may cause us to have disbelief, both believers and non-believers know that this life has an ultimate purpose. There's a purpose with it. Even if you don't say that you believe in Jesus Christ, you know that there is a reason behind it. For this reason, every one of us cling to a hope of one kind or another, don't we? Is there anybody here this morning that has no hope? No. We all have hope. Even if you don't believe the same that I believe, we all have hope. But here's the thing, that for some reason, every one of us cling to a hope of one kind or another. To lose one hope is perhaps the most tragic thing that could ever happen in this life. In 1926, a submarine, an S-4 submarine of the United States, was doing maneuvers off the coast, off the East Coast. When it surfaced after doing their run, it collided with a Coast Guard cutter. And 40 men were sent to the bottom of the ocean. And they tried for 3 days to desperately reach these men. A lot of them died in the first 12 hours, but 6 men had made their way to the front of the submarine and had sealed the door, and they sat there and waited for a rescue. And when divers finally were able to descend on the bottom of the floor to find out if there was any survivors from this accident, they could hear guys pinging on the hull of the submarine. And it was Morse code, and what they were asking was a simple message: is there hope? Because without hope, we have nothing. We have no reason to go on tomorrow. Is there hope? Is there hope for you? To say that all human beings cling to hope is true. To say that we all have the same true hope, a living hope, is not true. Many non-believers place their hope in things that they feel will give them hope, but it's only fleeting. Money, a job, fame, power. But those are all to be taken away. To hope in such things is really to be hopeless, in my opinion. Because such things will one day come to an end. To have a hope in them is to only have a dead hope. But the empty tomb changes all of that. Because not only does Jesus give the empty tomb being empty, it not only gives you a hope, but it gives you an eternity of hope. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 says this, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, according to his great mercy." Remember we talked about that last week? He has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Death does not get the final say, does it? No. That's the message of Easter. That's the message of an empty tomb. This living hope will never end. It sustains us. It sustains us through even dark moments of our lives when we're suffering. Ours is a living hope only because its foundation is in the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. The fact that Jesus was raised to life 2,000 years ago gives us this unshakable conviction that our hope is not in vain. His resurrection vindicates him as Lord of creation, who is now, even as resolute. I got to pause here and think about this. We're not going to make another bishop mistake. Revelation tells us in chapter 3, he is making all things new again. And that is a hope to have, right? I don't know about you, but I look forward to having a new body. Yeah, I look forward to having some hair, right? The empty tomb gives us two things: power of victory for eternity, and a living hope, not just today, but for eternity. The king always has one more move. Always. The king always has another option. Maybe you're at that place today where you feel like you have no more options. A story is told of two men in southern France. They go to this museum and they stand before this painting. And the painting is titled Checkmate. And what the painting has, let me describe it to you, is it has two men playing chess. And one of the people is not a man, it's actually Satan. And he has this other man in checkmate. And he's got this grin, this sly grin of victory on his face. They look at this painting for a while, and the other man decides, you know what, I want to go away. I want to leave. I want to go look at other stuff. But the one man is drawn to it because there's something odd about this painting that doesn't make sense to him. He's an international chess champion. And he begins to study this painting. The other guy goes on. He tells him, I'm going to catch up with you later. And he studies this painting and he looks at it. And then all of a sudden, after studying it for a few moments, he realizes what the problem is. He says it's wrong. The painting's wrong. And he runs and he grabs his friend and he drags him back to this painting. And he says, we got to contact the artist of this painting because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's not checkmate. The king still has one more move. Throughout the history of the Bible, we see that the king always has one more move. The Israelites, with their backs against the Red Sea, and Pharaoh's army charging from the opposite direction, and they're trapped, and all hope looks lost. The king still has one more move. Daniel defies an evil king because he will not bow, he will not compromise his faith. And he is lowered into a den of hungry lions, and all hope looks lost. But the king still has one more move. A little shepherd boy steps to the forefront. A 9-foot giant has challenged the army of Israelites to a winner-takes-all death match. And this little shepherd boy with 3 little stones in a sling steps forward. And I can imagine the men in that army thought, yeah, it's over now. Pack your bags, boys. But the king has one more arrested. He's beaten. He's tortured. His disciples see him led away, and his body nailed to a cross. And 6 hours later, he says it's finished. And he breathes his last, and all hope is lost, right? But 3 days later, the king has one more move. Maybe you're here this morning and you feel defeated. Life has beaten you. The king has one more move. Maybe you feel like Satan has trapped you and you're out of options. The king has one more move. Maybe you feel like your life is a failure, that there is no hope, no more options.